Manor Lords has a plethora of ways to approach making your mighty medieval village ever since it jumped into early access last week. One of the most important ways to develop your town is, well, developments. In this video today, I want to go through developments and help you decide which ones are the best for the given scenario you're presented with in your playthrough. And very few of them are one size fits all. They're going to be dependent on the play style, which town this is on the map for you, maybe your first, your second, and what resources are available to that region. Now, if this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge of my videos. So with that being said, you get 6 development points right now in the game. This will, of course, change due to early access and more features being added over time. And really, you could choose any developments, experiment with stuff, and be just fine. But big standout choices are heavy plows to make farming a much easier endeavor. Charcoal kilns help with fuel efficiency. Honey is an easy form of food to manage without having to dedicate a bunch of time to it, like apple orchards. And sheep breeding is another strong one right now. But there's currently a bug where sheep reproduce at an astounding rate, much to the celebration of the Welsh, that you can leverage, but I'd be wary of investing in any form of playing that is obviously going to be patched away, like, vegetable gardens. And you can't go wrong with any of these, really. Now, all the other developments I haven't mentioned are really going to be dependent upon your region and what is available to you. Yes, even trade, because what's the benefit of trading a bunch if you can't supply yourself with a means of replenishing your regional wealth outside of burgage plots? We'll discuss each set of developments broken up into each of the quadrants, and you can simply navigate to the quadrant that interests you the most using the chapters about the timeline in the description. But that's really the entire gist of this video. I'll be going over concrete examples of when, say, deep mining makes sense, or when you should go heavy on the hunting tech, etc. So if that's all you wanted to know, please feel free to shut the video down and get back to developing your medieval paradise. Before you head out, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if this video did end up helping you, as that does have a huge impact on my channel. And lastly, if you've not yet purchased Manor Lords and you'd like to support the channel, you can use the link in my description to my Nexus Store. Nexus gets Steam keys directly from the developer, Greg in this case, and delivers them to you. Like I said, it does greatly support me. But let's get started here on the best development choices in Manor Lords. So we've loaded into the game, and let's have a quick conversation here about some general notions before we jump into the development nit and gritties. And first off, of course, is that with development points, you are limited to 6. I currently have 1, 2, 3, 4 in this playthrough, but I will be able to get another 2 by upgrading from a small town to a medium town to eventually a large town. That is the max at the current state of the game. So that is that notion about the 6 development points. And that I wanted to tell you that up front, so this way you can kind of plan things out in order of importance of which ones you want to focus on first. Like, say, for example, I went into heavy plows first, and then I went down here into like the blacksmithing route. So just kind of make things have a little bit of a coherency for you. Now, overall, when you look at the map, it's important to look at each and every region. You're going to start in a region. So I, for example, started over here. And every single region will have 2 rich deposits. So for example, I have a rich deposit of iron. And if you look over here, this is a rich deposit of berry, a rich deposit of stone, rich deposit of iron again, and clay. And you'll kind of see around here, where's that? Oh, here's rich deposit of wild animals. But you'll notice too, I only have 1 rich deposit. Well, if you look at the map, any region that only has 1 rich deposit, like this one up here, or this one over here, or mine, it's assumed, well, it's not assumed, it is, that the other rich deposit is fertility. So my whole entire region is Emmer fertile. Let's look at this one over here. Emmer fertile sounds like a really weird, like, sex drug. This one over here, boom, all fertile. No drugs needed for that fertility. There you go. All bingo, bango, bongo. And you can kind of, it's not going to be 100%, but it's definitely going to have a better fertility than most regions. And Rye and Emmer kind of exist in the same kind of spectrum here. So you can see that's how you're going to determine how you're going to progress through a lot of the developments I'm about to talk about. Because I'll say if your region has this or if it has that, and you can recycle these things by simply restarting the game. You simply load in and go, that's got to rich this and a rich that, I'll restart. I would discourage that level of play though. Yeah, sure, if you want to do it, go ahead and do it. You paid your money, play your fucking game however you want. But I really think that what since it's in early access, some of the best way of approaching this game is how can I learn to deal with the kind of disadvantage or advantages that the game presents to me. It's part of the learning curve, but also part of the challenge. So if you load into a game that's got maybe a rich wild animals and rich berry and you don't want those things, you want maybe better soil or rich iron, I would say just struggle through it and see how you can overcome it to get into a region that has the things that you want that are rich deposits. So we've talked about the development system, how we can kind of determine which developments are going to be better for individual regions, and let that be known too. This Talonshire over here is only going to have these developments. When I jump over to, let's just say, this location and I settle it, then it will have its own developments that are linked to that region. So you are locked into each region's developmental choice. You cannot currently respec your development choices. They are locked in permanently, which I don't know if that'll change in the future or not. So we've got all that general information down. Let's now jump into talking about the developments. So the first quadrant we're going to talk about here is blacksmithing. And I've called it blacksmithing because there's a blacksmith in the background. But we have the left branch and the right branch. And the left branch has one development that is definitely a one-size-fits-all type of development, and it's charcoal burning. So charcoal will convert 1 firewood into 2 charcoal, making refueling twice as efficient. And also it's worth noting that if right now I've got, I think, 27, I've got 26, soon to be 27 burgage plots. And of those 27 burgage plots, they will all go take firewood. Well, if they run out of firewood, they'll take charcoal. It's the only resource in the game that double dips. All the other resources are a single use for the requirement of something, and then it just gives you bonuses for variety bonuses, right? So like take, for example, here, let's say berries, meat, bread, all that. You just get food variety bonuses, but you just need the actual variety of them to tick off for your burgage plots. Same thing with clothing. Even though I've got 27 leather and 27 linen, it doesn't add up. They'll choose one or the other unless they need 2 satisfactions, unless they'll take 1 from tier 1 and 1 from tier 2. So charcoal is nice that it actually doubles up and makes things a lot easier to refuel. Now, the other one in this branch is deep mining, which is going to make it so that you can infinitely pull resources from any rich deposit of either clay or iron. So I've put it over here onto my iron deposit, so I will infinitely have iron in this region. But conversely too, you can have it over here in your clay location and can have infinite amounts of clay. The issue here is that with iron, I can produce a cash crop in tools. Tools don't have a use right now, so I can just sell them. I can constantly have iron producing for me and constantly be creating tools to constantly have regional wealth. I could do that with clay tiles, but also clay tiles are used for my requirements to upgrade my burgage plots from level 2 to level 3. So if I did this, I would just tell you to be wary, and it also is going to depend upon what other things are rich or what other things are going to be a focus in this location. There are no real developments that are real true black and white. A lot of things come down to it depends on your situation. So don't get lost in like, if you're not choosing this, it's broken. No, just have fun with it, but also keep in mind that a lot of this is going to be dependent upon you and how you're playing. So with clay tiles, I would just tell you real quick, make sure that if you've got the rich resource of clay tiles and you want to start trying to sell them to make some money, what I would tell you is set the roof tiles surplus here to whatever multiple. So let's go ahead and look at this just to give you an actual concrete example of what I'm talking about. Do I have no more level 2 burgage plots? Am I just not making a video that's worth anything right now? Okay, so it takes 4 tiles to go up from level 2 to level 3. So I would take, let's take a look at this. Okay, I've got 9 level 2 plots. I would take 9 times 4 and put that number right here. And then I would set that to a full trade. Full trade means that they will trade until desired surplus is reached, meaning they will sell any excess you've got. But if you somehow make another building and you dip below that excess or that target amount, then they will buy up to that amount. So this allows you the flexibility to sell and tap into that rich deposit, but not go too low that you cannot upgrade your burgage plots. That's going to be a pretty big crucial thing for you. Now, your other ones in this list here are the armor making into advanced into master armor making. And if you have iron, take this. If you do not have iron, rich iron deposit, do not take this because you will end up just completely bottoming out your pursuit of going down this. If you don't have the constant form of iron, now you're going to have to buy it. Now you're going to have to supplement that purchasing of it through whatever means. So unless you're really clever with the market, I would not go down this route, because basic armor making makes us helmets. This makes us mail, which can only be equipped by citizens of Burgage plot level 3. So I was really excited to jump into this, but then I realized, well, only 3 of my families can, or only 3 of my plots can even wear them. So I might as well wait and do that later. So don't jump into this if you can't really satisfy the kind of benefit that it delivers. Also, too, you can help with promoting your retinues and helping giving them better armor here by cutting their promotional cost in half, which is absolutely great. Let's jump into another quadrant now. But before we do that, just to quickly recap, the Blacksmithing Quadrant is great if you have a rich iron deposit, and it's really only good in that situation. If you have a rich clay deposit, sure, maybe you jump down and grab deep mining, but the rest of this is, unless you have a source of iron coming into the region that you don't have to pay exorbitant amounts for, I would not touch this quadrant outside of that. Next up is actually the smallest quadrant, and it's a pretty handy one, but I think it's a bit of a trap. The first one here is foreign supplies. So basically you can set up a firewood cart and a food cart. So it's a permanent market stall, which provides passive income of firewood or bread, as long as the region has enough regional wealth. Region does not pay the transport fee, must be placed on the marketplace. You can definitely do this, and I've seen a lot of people do it and have a lot of success with it. But of my 6 slots, I wouldn't jump into this until later, when I wanted to kind of have the region be a little bit more automated. I'd make this my 5th or 6th development point choice, and that way I don't really feel like I'm shortchanging my development early. If you jump into this first, okay, well now you can't do plowing, you can't do apple orchards, you can't do honey, you can't do charcoal, you can't do anything first. You have to wait until you get into a second point to even jump into any of the things that actually help your village grow. Well, yes, this does help it grow by keeping your satisfaction up and helping with that population growth. It doesn't directly help by giving you a means to produce. It helps by having a means to purchase. And at the beginning of the game, you don't have enough money to leverage these. So foreign supplies is good, but I think it's one that takes a longer portion of the game to really see its worth, because you don't maybe have the regional wealth to tap into it. Speaking of that, we have 2 other ones, and I think they're linked together. You either take them together or you don't. Strat Gaming and I were talking about this, and I was saying, well, I want to trade logistics, I want to do this. He goes, no, here's how you should view this. And it's basically coming down to, you can open up a trade route for 25 regional wealth, or just pay whatever the full cost is. And that's not that much of a difference. If you're at a point where you're starting to make money, yeah, roof tiles is 96. That's super high. But if you're at a point where you're ready to sell those, you probably are getting enough passive income from your tax, which you should be doing. You should be doing taxes and tithing. And you should be getting enough passive income here from your burgage plots to be able to get you to a point to pay for this. And 2, you should be selling off like excess amounts of items you don't need, like tools, stone after a certain part in the game for you, other things that you can sell off that you maybe have a rich abundance of. Even if it's like, hey, you know what, I got a bunch of berries, I'm going to sell dye. Whatever it is, you can leverage that to just simply buy these trade routes. And even then, they're not always worth it. You're not going to be buying every single one of these. You're only going to buy 1 or 2 of the ones that actually make sense for the commodity or the resource or the whatever you're actually going to trade, which then brings me to better deals. So if you've unlocked this, cool, then jump into this. Don't jump into one if you're not going to go into the other. Because better deals here removes a tariff from foreign imports, effectively reducing all import prices by 10. So if I go here to, let's just say, let's choose one, grain, import, that's 12. Well, it reduces it by 10, it's 2. It's way easier to do. So if you've already kind of dedicated this region to being a bit of a wheeler and a dealer, a trader, and you have the means to kind of create that regional wealth to leverage into the buying and selling of trade, then definitely do it. But that probably means you've got some sort of cash crop that you can do that with. Maybe it's tools again, maybe it's anything else that you are actually able to trade large amounts of and get good trade routes up, then do it. Otherwise, wait until the latter portion of your development if you jump into trade. You're like, hey, jumping into this as your first one's not going to make sense, maybe even your second one. But your 5th or 6th, they make a lot of sense because you have things all set up at that point, and it makes sense of when you want to jump into stuff. Now the hunting quadrant, or whatever you want to call this one. So this one's, again, broken up into 2 separate branches, like they all are. But you've got one right here in the middle for forest management, doubles capacity of all berry deposits. This is an interesting one. So let's just take a look here. This berry deposit is 64, that would double up to 128. Where's a rich one? This one is 128, that would double up to 256. Man, my math is impeccable right there. I didn't think I'd be able to double it in time. That's great. That's cool. But it is also a seasonal thing in that it will not produce during the winter. And I don't want to waste a development point on something like that is so drastic. Now, I mean, I'm about to talk about the whole farming branch here, right? But still, if you have a rich berry deposit, this can definitely be worth it because you can turn those berries into a necessity in also, is it a commodity that those things are under? Are they crafting supplies? Yeah. Dyes. Dyes can sell for 4, which is pretty nice, but you need dyes for clothes to satisfy the need to progress your burgage plots. So there's a big benefit to it. The yield, though, for converting berries into dye is pretty substantial. Like, yeah, sure, the Dye Workshop's going to take it, but they'll give you a pretty good amount of berries or a pretty good amount of dye per, I think it's like 2 to 1 or 3 to 1. And this gets you even more. So if you do have a rich berry deposit, this can be worth it. But like I said, I'd rather maybe jump into any of the other things in this branch, assuming I've got the things to take advantage of them. Honey being an exception here because you don't need anything for honey. And that's why I like it, which brings me to our conversation here. Beekeeping allows me to make apiaries, which allow me to collect honey. Every region can sustain up to 2 apiaries by default. Placing more will not increase the yield. So you just put 2 apiaries up and you just have pretty perpetual amounts of food. Now, it's not going to sustain a whole huge society, but it adds a nice amount of food variety, especially in the beginning where it can be really nice to just kind of have that food source online for you and not have to be kind of so locked into what your region has. Beekeeping is one of the really good, strong starting ones because, like I said, you pop those 2 down, you're done for that region. You never have to tap into that ever again. And once your region really grows and you get a lot more wealth going, a lot more food online and stuff like that, you can jump into advanced beekeeping. Now, this just allows you to have the beekeepers collect wax, which is different than, say, the berries. Berries, they're turning into dyes or dye. The honey isn't being turned into wax. It's an additional product of the apiary. So now the apiary gives you food and a cash crop. So apiary and beekeeping is really good. Is it always worth it? It just comes down to what you've got. Like, see, I'm going really hard over here in the paint with this. Is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm tapped out. I cannot go any further into any other development points because I'm going really hard into iron. So look at your region. Do you have fertile soil and iron, or fertile soil and berries, or fertile soil and anything else that doesn't take a huge investment? Then maybe jump into these. You just have to make sure you're looking at this and thinking, okay, I'm subtracting from 6. Which ones are going to be useful for what I want to do? And I mean, maybe beekeeping works really well here with better deals to open up the window of just trading tons of wax that you're already getting in from honey. So that's something to kind of consider. Now, another big one here is trapping. Enables hunters to skillfully lay traps in the forest, which give a passive income of meat. So you don't even need to leverage a rich wild animal field. That's 20. This is going to go jump up to 40. So rich just doubles it pretty much, for the exception of like iron deposits. So that goes up pretty high, right? So trapping just gives you passive meat income, which is really good. And if you already have a rich deposit, you can jump further into this with doubles the amount of meat harvested by hunters. And you're always going to harvest this down to a certain amount. But what I like about meat is it's something that you turn on and off throughout the year. So, hey, you know what? It's in season. Boom, I'm going to go kill. It's back up to full. I'm going to go back into it. There's a lot of really cool things that I like about harvesting. Almost, that's a really weird way to say it. But what I like about it is that it's one of the, like, a surefire way to get a lot of food during the winter. And this is a great way to get even more out of that situation should you have a rich deposit of wild animals. Furthermore, too, pellet extraction hunters also collect hides from traps. And I really like these two working in conjunction because you're already going to go get the passive meat. Now you're going to get passive hides. You can work this in conjunction with goats to just have a ton of hides. And remember, hides can be converted to leather, which is a tier 1 source of clothing, but leather then can be converted into shoes, which are a tier 2 form of clothing. So if you have the means of really jumping into the wild animals with the rich deposit, take advantage of these 3, or maybe even just these 2, to be totally honest with you, and have fun with really jumping into the cobbler too and getting a good amount of tier 1 and tier 2 clothing options out from just these traps, those goats, that leather, those shoes. And the last one to talk about is a pretty wild one, and it is the farming quadrant. So with farming, you've got the big boy here is sheep breeding. Everyone is big on this one right now because sheeps will breed out of control. Out of control. I am not using it. I just have the sheep there. I'm just going to buy them and I'm going to use them for wool as I need. But you can have sheep get to a disgusting number very quickly. You'd think they're rabbits. But heavy plow is one that I almost always take because this allows me to put a ox at the farmhouse to do 2 things. It can plow the fields, but also when it comes to harvesting, we can harvest stuff quicker by hauling stuff off the fields and into the farmhouse. I have, in this example over here, set up 2 farmhouses to work sets of fields like that and like that, and both have the ox cart in them. So while the families are assigned to this farmhouse, they'll go and plow and sow a field while an ox goes and plows another field. It just makes it a far more reliable and far more efficient way of farming. Now, what if you don't have fertile soil? Honestly, I'd still say it's pretty worth it because even when you don't have fertile soil, let's take a look here. Hammer. So here's the land without fertile soil, really, right? You can still turn this soil fertile. Like it's not going to be bumping out the gate, but you can take that first year and rather than farming, even just still 2 pluses is still just fine. The percentage of these farms, let's see this. This is not the percentage of yield. A higher percentage here doesn't yield you more crop. What it's saying is this is pretty much however much total fertility is left in the ground. If I want to kind of use an easy comparison, and it doesn't show you right here, but so this is down to like 39, 45 because we've just started planting and growing here, right? But the percentage here is going to be lower in this region, which has these minuses and these little pluses, not just the triple pluses that I've got, but it's still workable. So don't look at this and go, I'm not going to be able to make any crops. It just means maybe you need to let the field fallow for the first year, which is just fine in the first year, or maybe even just have a heavier crop rotation. So I think the heavy plow, you get use from every single form of the game. And it's one of the almost like auto spends for me when it comes to development points. Now up top here, you have bakeries, produce bread from flour with twice the efficiency of the communal oven, converts all inhabitants to artisans. So basically you have a workshop option for your burgage plots. And if you have a ton of wheat and you have rich fields, jumping into this is useful, but it depends. Remember, I have rich fields, but I have a rich iron deposit and I'm jumping really hard into this. So I cannot afford the development point cost to put into these bakeries. But if I were to expand to a second location and that second location had rich fields, even if I didn't have rich fields, I wanted to be kind of like, this is my bread winner. This is my bread basket of my empire. This is where I'm going to jump into bakeries because this will produce food, bread specifically, at a much more efficient, twice the efficiency of the communal oven than, the communal oven. So it's a much better way to get bread online. And then also fertilization allows you to fallow fields as a pasture, which rapidly restores lost fertility. And also you can have your sheep coming over there and they can breed all over it if you want. So if you want to jump harder into the actual farming portion of the game, this branch is really good. Not to say that the other branch isn't, but so let's talk about it. So we have orchardry. And I don't like apple orchards because it takes 3 years for them to even produce. And I just don't like that. Until the trees are fully grown, which takes around 3 years, the orchards produce only a fraction of the yield. It's just too long of a play for me, and I don't have the patience. But I do know that people have had a lot of really good success with it. I just don't like that it costs me the development point to play around with. And it is going to be dependent on the actual size. So jumping over to my village, if I were to make the orchard like this, I would get a higher yield than like this. And what is really gamey right now, what a lot of people are doing, and I do not encourage it because it's just going to be patched anyway. People are doing burgage plots like this. And then just having all, like, not even this large, but like maybe just half that size. You can have it be vegetable gardens or apple orchards. As long as it's not too large, they'll get a ton of yield off of it. But they just have to, it has to be small enough too that they can manage it because it's 2 families working it. So just know that. So that's the way you kind of approach apple orchards. Not a huge fan of it, which then brings me to irrigation dramatically lowers the amount of damage caused by droughts. It's not a mechanic we have in the game yet. And then rye cultivation unlocks rye crop for fields. Similar to wheat, rye can be processed into flour, but it's more resilient and therefore it can be grown in places with lower fertility. I just don't think it's worth it for you. Even if low fertility exists, just fallow your fields for a little bit. I think these will become a little bit more important as we start to hit stuff that needs to be drought resistant, needs to worry about fluctuating, what's it called? Fluctuating weather. Maybe there's an incoming insect mechanic or something like that. Like, oh, the cicadas. I don't know. Are cicadas a big worry to farmers? I have no idea. But still, my point is that farming is one of the things that really the only portion I like is the right side of the branch. The left side is just completely not as useful right now because there's just so many things that are not in the game. So if you have rich, fertile soil, really want to lean into farming, go on the right side of the branch. Even if you don't have rich, fertile soil, get heavy plows. It's damn useful. So you can see that there's a lot of this that comes down to a what if scenario and also a it depends. To close our video out here, let's kind of talk about the order, the priority of how you're going to approach your developments. And for your first point, I would say invest in something that makes sense for the growth of your village, not something that is a fun thing that you maybe want to jump into. For example, my first point should not be in basic armor making because I probably don't have the means to produce any of this. I need level 2 burgage plots. I need to sacrifice people in that I need to turn them from workers into artisans that are now armorers so they can make these helmets. And I then need to make an iron ore mine, and then I've got to make a smelter to do all that. There's a lot of steps that this requires. So I would not recommend you to do this for your first. Same thing over here. Foreign supplies, yeah, sure, jump into it if you want, but I wouldn't do it first because you probably don't have the money to make this worthwhile. So same thing too with sheep breeding. Sheep graze on the pastures slowly. Well, you need to buy the sheep. So when it comes to choosing these, choose something that directly impacts the future growth of your town. Heavy plows. I'm not going to shut up about it. Beekeeping, even orchardry. If you chose it first, you're gonna plant those right off the bat, and you're at least going to get those going for you in 2 years. Boom. Trapping. It helps you immediately. These things are going to help grow your village. And then from there, start to feel out how that kind of accessory jumps out at you. So to give you an idea of what the order I took in this save, I did heavy plows first because I needed to immediately start tilling or plowing my fields. And then I took charcoal burning because I was starting to grow, but I needed help with my fuel efficiency. I think charcoal burning is an easy second choice, no matter what you choose, because it's only 1 point to get to it, and it's going to help every single village because you need fuel efficiency. So charcoal burning is a definite auto pick for me. But then after that, I went to basic armor making, so I could help out with helmets to deal with the eventual brigand or bandit raid that you deal with. And after that, I went to deep mining because now I was able to get all the infrastructure up for mining already. This just allowed me to make it an infinite resource for me. From there, I will just put my future points into armor making down in here and here. So again, choose things as they fit specific needs. And at the beginning of the game, the biggest need you have is food, is establishing food and then establishing fuel. That's why I think your first choice should be focused on that. Fuel or food. Fuel. So go with one of those and then the other one. I just think that you're always going to kind of be stuck in that kind of loop. And then from there, fill the need that makes sense after that. So for me, it was I needed more defense. But maybe you've gone down this. You're like, well, I've got the means to create the food, but I need the means to produce it into more food quicker because my community is growing so much. Well, then go ahead and get bakeries. Maybe you're over here, you're like, I can't upgrade my burgage plots to level 2. Well, go ahead and get pelt extraction to get more hides, to get more leather, to get better shoes. Or maybe, you know, you jumped into beekeeping. Well, the bees aren't really giving me enough money or enough food right now. Well, now you can at least get money from the wax. So approach your development choices, which are all going to change, right? Look at all these padlocks. This is all going to change. This is all going to change. I mean, like, I don't know if this is any different than this. Like, are we never going to get these until the game launches? And is this one just coming? So we've got a plenty of other ways to approach all this in the future. And this is all predicated upon the notion that this is your first town. Maybe the second or third one in your region, you already have your blacksmith. Now I'm going to make a dedicated farmer. So use your development options based off of what fits your specific need in your playthrough and how you're going to push everything together for you to get you the actual resources you need to succeed. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. If you have any questions or anything you want to say about the developments, hey, I've always seen that this is the one to go with. To screw what this guy says, it's all about the honey. You just got to go with honey first. Or you know what? No, it's definitely trade logistics, and here's why. Let it be known in the comment section below. I'm always down to get as much information out to the people as possible to help them learn the game. But as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.